Hi, my name is Katlego Maphai, co-founder and CEO of Yoco. Today I had the privilege of being joined by my fellow co-founders, Wazen, our Chief Business Officer, Bradley Wattrus, our Chief Financial Officer, and Lungisa Matshoba, our Chief Technology Officer. It was a privilege to spend time with my fellow co-founders, discussing our journey, the ethos of the organization, where we're trying to go and what we believe in. I hope you enjoy it too, and you're going to be a fly on the wall on conversations that we've been having for many years. Enjoy. Guys, how's it? First of all, whenever we get together, spend time, we always shake. Brad. Virtually, how you doing? Geez, like we've been working together for 8 years now. I was just reflecting on that today. It's amazing for me that every single conversation still feels like the first time, and I'm just as excited. And today's just another opportunity for that, which is really cool. But I think it's worth getting into something that most people don't know about the company, and that is the fact that the four of us actually came together before the idea. Our paths connected on many different levels, and I just wanted to chat a little bit about that first. So you and I met when we were kids in the early 90s. We went to the same aftercare. And we randomly ran into each other again many years later at university, lining up for business science. Can you think about sort of your life leading up to that moment and what came next in terms of your career?
Yeah. So, from playing with computers to, at high school, still having a passion for that, with a mixture of a bit of art at the same time. And then at the end of high school, I was actually keen to just start a little e-commerce thing, which my parents sort of very quickly shut down. And that's pretty much how I ended up in that line with you for business science.
And then you started a company towards the end of university, yeah?
Yeah. So I think right before the end of varsity, I started working with a couple of friends on creating a voice over IP app. So very similar to like WhatsApp voice, but on 3G networks and Symbian phones and Windows Mobile. So I think before the technology caught up. And yeah, that ended up becoming a business that's primary premise was giving away phone calls for free. So, definitely wasn't applying the business side of the business degree, but nonetheless, like eventually that grew into a company, got acqui-hired and became part of a bigger company that was focused on voice over IP and SMS messaging.
And yeah, man, really cool to be sitting here with you. And then, Carl, so you and I met at an interesting time. I had finished at UCT, took up my first job at this consulting company and, developed a passion for telecoms. And the moment I walked into the space, I was like, this is exactly where I wanted to be. And, fast forward 12 months later, you and I are thrown together on a project. What built up to that moment in your life, and what are some of the things that came next?
Yeah, so unlike Lungi, I wasn't a born technologist, and I also wasn't I would say entrepreneurship was not in my DNA the way people sometimes talk about having started their business at 6-7 years old, selling lemonade to the neighbors. That wasn't really my story, but the culture of entrepreneurship was pretty pervasive in my family, and also in my community. So I'm originally Lebanese, and Lebanese people have been entrepreneurial for thousands of years, but it hasn't actually slowed down in any way. A lot of it is not by choice, really, it kind of forced to, but it was just a lot of real inspiration and expectation, right, from the family, because 3 generations of entrepreneurs, at least that I'm aware of. And my parents both started their businesses. They succeeded and failed, and just seeing a lot of the ups and downs, but just the beauty of the ups, and that made it all so powerful for me, and made it super clear that that's what I wanted to do at some point. So it was never an if, it was more a when. And the question of when was never about what's the idea or how big's the problem, although those are very important. It was very much about with whom, because I always knew that there's no way I could embark on such a journey unless, like, by myself. Like, that was never a thing. I had to do it with friends, and when we worked together, I'm like, okay, cool. So he's a guy that we're working really well together, but we're also share so many common interests and similar kind of perspectives on life. So it kind of felt like this might be the right partnership and the right time for us to jump off the cliff, as they say.
Yeah, geez, it's amazing like hearing you talk about that, because I never saw myself as an entrepreneur, and you know, I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. Parents are academics, pretty straight-laced, and it was very much on I would say a linear career path, pretty set. This started feeling like the only way to spend our time working on what really matters to us. So
We became a bit anti-establishment, like during our friendship, and it was kind of like felt like rebels that we had to do this entrepreneurship thing. It wasn't weren't gonna change anything otherwise. Yeah, that's how it felt.
and then this third guy, Bradley, like complete comet in my life. Was not expecting to meet Bradley, and we got, similar to me and you, Carl, like thrust onto a team together, and told to figure things out. And Brad, just curious, like, what was life for you leading up to that moment?
I grew up in Johannesburg, and parents in the technology space. So my mom was a software engineer, which is very unusual for at least her time, and my dad's also in IT. So I've kind of been the black sheep of the family that went into finance, but learned a lot about computers from an early age as well, and I guess that got me really interested in it. And they also had this drive for entrepreneurship. I was one of those who was selling Coca-Colas around the corner from the tuck shop at primary school, and running always little side businesses. But it was really, I think, my father who encouraged that. He had this thing where he wouldn't give us pocket money, he'd give us capital, and we had to figure out a way to turn it into profit. So that was always in the back of my mind, but went to university and studied in Johannesburg, and then was expecting, I guess, in my 30s to get into entrepreneurship. But when this opportunity at Rocket Internet came about, I felt like it was just an early ticket. And I literally called my brother. I'm like, listen, I've got this offer. I don't know if I should do it. He's like, just take it. And I think a week later, I was on a plane to Cape Town. Within 3 weeks, I think we were on a plane to Nigeria. So really just put me on a completely different track, I guess, coming from middle class, sort of Johannesburg life, straight into Lagos in Nigeria. Was a real baptism of fire into entrepreneurship, I'd say. And learned a lot, and I guess that's where we became really good friends. I guess just being in those, living, sort of in the back of the office, and kind of just trying to figure out things from the ground up was incredible.
Yeah, I'll never forget those days, man. They just, in my opinion, mentally prepared us for everything ahead and made everything else possible, right? I think, setting up a e-commerce venture in Lagos in 2012, and just seeing that scale and become what it was in such a short space of time, I think redefined what is possible in our minds, right? And I'll never forget the day you and I decided that it was time to go back to South Africa and start a company, right? And when we took Hendrik outside, our boss, for a coffee and told him that we were leaving, he was like, what are you guys talking about?
Thanks for not leaving me hanging. I mean, I was waiting for you in Cape Town. Like, one of these guys coming back from Lagos. Looks like they're having too much fun, but luckily they did come back.
Well, that was the thing, right? Not only did I come back, but I came back with new gifts.
No, you came back with our CFO.
With our CFO, exactly. We were all in Cape Town. You were out of your previous company. You had come from Lebanon after doing a bit of sabbatical. Brad and I were back from Nigeria, a little bit burnt out from the experience, but excited about the future. And then we just started hanging out.
Even outside of, the really big idea that ended up becoming Yoco, it was really a chemistry amongst people. And that, I think, is the essence of great companies. It's that you want to have people who just enjoy hanging out and can just have hours-long conversations about random things that are not necessarily related to the only topic you guys came in together. So I think the friendship is the cornerstone, I think, of this. And just laughing and having fun. I mean, that was what it was about.
And then I guess we were looking at lots of different ideas, really different, right? Like different stratas and stuff. And we started circling in on this mobile point of sale business model. And do you remember like when we started realizing how significant this was as an idea, like when we started looking at the numbers? Can you remember like just some of the things we started seeing?
What we noticed when we started to look at the numbers was just the size of the problem. So what we noticed was that small businesses and micro businesses, which are 99% of businesses in South Africa and actually in most countries, were completely kept out of the payments market. So there were over 80% of people in South Africa had cards and bank accounts, but fewer than 10% of businesses in South Africa had cards. So they have card machines, sorry. They have bank accounts, but they didn't have a way to accept cards, which was a critical part of their business. And with more people having cards, not having a card machine meant missing sales. And we tried to dig into what was actually causing, businesses not wanting, and there was lots of theories. Was it tax, or was it, wanting to be under the radar? And we noticed it was just impossible for a small to micro business to get a card machine. Yeah. Impossible. Like it was almost like getting a mortgage for your house. Like it was horrible. Yeah. So that problem felt huge, but required a certain, combination of things to fix. And that just felt like the right challenge for us, because it was, at the time, a $50 billion a year transaction value gap, which we now have revised that estimate up to 100 billion. Because if you think about it, that is the whole consumer consumption, right? Consumption, payments is consumption. And if all consumption is still happening in cash, that means a lot of businesses are actually missing out.
A lot of the things we were talking about, even before we got to this idea, was just observing society, right? And what we refer to as the status quo, and this idea that, some people could participate and some people couldn't, and some people could come in and some people couldn't. And just realizing as we looked across the South African economy that this was how things were. And that in many respects, people were just being artificially left out. So from a purpose perspective, this was like the energy that was pulling us together, right? And almost being like the filter through which we wanted to pursue the big idea and what we wanted to solve. And I guess what I find fascinating is that the intuition that pulled us towards small business, and then realizing how significant the problem was, and then at the same time realizing and solving the problem that we would be helping economies at a localized scale, and driving employment and giving tools and all these things. That was just fascinating for me how we got there.
Yeah, I guess I think for me one of the early memories or the early triggers for me that made me realize that we are definitely going in the right direction was just visiting businesses and hearing the stories of waiting. This idea that I want this thing, I've asked for it, I've been with this company for so many years, I've had a relationship, but I'm not allowed to get it. Right. And my customers want to be able to take that type of payment. So I think that was basically for me what really started to say, okay, this is a big problem, because I think at the start you always assume, okay, look, it's definitely affecting a lot of businesses, but the sense of desperation that businesses have towards it, that wasn't clear to me. It was look, I guess people have maybe just given up on wanting card. They've just accepted that they can't get it. Happy with cash at this stage. These are all the assumptions driving it, because surely you assume that if everybody wanted it that bad, they'd be knocking at the bank's door and really and it turns out they were. And I guess that's sort of that's obviously very interesting. Yeah. And then from there, just starting to understand that there were a lot of reasons that were making it impossible for these kinds of customers to get in. And we could solve for those reasons because the way we were going about the solution, the technology, the vetting processes, everything was just different. And that for me became clear. And then, of course, from there,